Namaste children, this is Jyoti Devgan from the Department of English. Now let me carry forward the story A Journey Through Desert, written by Sudha Murthy. We talked about two characters, identical twins, Ram and Gopal. Now as I told you that they never used to wear those shirts which the writer used to bring for them. So one day the writer asked them that why they do not wear those shirts. They used to be so happy when she used to give it to them. So what was the reason? Why didn't they wear it? The reason they gave was that in the petrol pump, at the service station, the shirts used to become greasy. Once I took some storybooks for them, thinking they would read them at night. After all, while other children at their age were studying in schools and attending classes, they were also attending chess and hockey tournaments. These boys were slogging to make both ends meet, meaning to make both ends meaning to provide 2 times food for the family. But when I gave them the storybooks, their faces became pale. And for the first time ever, I saw a trace of unhappiness. A trace of unhappiness meaning a slight sign of being unhappy on their faces. They said, "Madam, it takes a lot of time for us to read as we are not used to reading. Will you tell us the story?" "How can I tell the story here when you are working all the time? We get some free time at about 4 o'clock, the boys said. If you come to get your car serviced, then we can sit with you and listen to the stories." Their 2 pairs of eyes were begging me for the stories. They really wanted the writer to narrate stories to them. They were interested in listening to the stories, but reading was not their cup of tea. And I could not say no. The writer says, I felt so bad that how can I say no? I remembered how my own children always insisted I tell them stories at night. So I agreed. Insisted meaning demanding something. So it became a routine. Routine meaning a normal kind of a schedule. So it became a routine for me to tell stories on Saturday evenings. I went there even if my car did not need to be serviced. They were very attentive. Attentive means when you pay attention, when you listen carefully. When I told my stories and waited eagerly for more. This went on for many months. Then I decided to get a driver and stopped driving myself. My driver took the car for servicing after that. And I did not meet Ram and Gopal for a long time. Time flows like water. After almost a decade meaning 10 years, a span of 10 years. After almost a decade, one day my driver was complaining about some problem the car was giving. I told him to get it repaired. My old car had outlived its life. Outlived meaning it had lived longer than the normal span of life, but was still working. When my driver came back, from the garage, he said, after looking at the car mechanic asked, about you. Do you know the owner of Good Luck Garage? I have not heard this name. Is it a new garage? It is relatively new. I always prefer to go to garages owned by youngsters. This young man is very sincere. It seems he has known you for a long time. He asked if you were still teaching in the college. The writer got suspicious. She says, how come a person at a service station garage, the garage I've never been to, how come he knows about me? I could not think of anyone. I knew who could be owning a garage now. Since my driver did not know his name, I was unable to place him. To place him meaning I was unable to exactly locate who could it be, because it was not those errand boys we were talking about. It was the owner of a garage. I couldn't even in my weirdest thought think about these two boys, and assumed that it would be some old student of mine. Assumed meaning I thought that maybe, I accepted that maybe it could be one of my old students. Though since I teach computer science, I could not figure out how this person had shifted to automobiles. Now she was a computer science teacher, so her students would be software engineers or hardware engineers. So how come this child had shifted into automobiles? When my driver told me a second time that the owner of the garage had asked about me, I felt I should go and meet this man who was so concerned about me. The word concerned means involved, worried. The next day, I went to the Good Luck Garage. It was a fairly modern garage and well equipped. Well equipped meaning it had everything what was required. There was a glass cabin and I assumed the owner was sitting there. As soon as I entered, a handsome young man in a blue overall, meaning in a blue suit, greeted me. He said he wished her. He was holding a spanner and a screwdriver in his hand. Spanner meaning a tool for turning the nuts. This man had a spanner in his hand and a screwdriver. Madam, please come and sit down in my cabin. I will wash my hands and come in a minute. I sat in the sofa in his office. It was a nice functional office. Functional meaning where things were going on. The young man looked vaguely familiar to me. Vaguely meaning roughly, not clear enough. I knew I had met him somewhere, but I could not place where. I wondered. Did I teach this boy in pre-university? That time, boys are 16 or 17 years old adolescents with a lot of energy. Adolescent means children 16 to 18 years of age. When I meet them after they have grown up, I often fail to recognize them. They look so different and mature. By that time, the man had returned with a coffee mug and a glass of water. Now this man, by the time Sudha Murthy, the writer, was trying to recollect, "Kaun ho sakta hai? Who can this boy be?" because she was not able to recognize. This man entered with a coffee mug and a glass of water. He had also changed into a blue coat and trousers. Madam, you have changed a lot. You look old and tired. I'm sorry, beta. I'm not able to recollect your name. I'm really sorry, she said. You should excuse me and tell me your name at least. As you said, I'm growing old. She says, really, you are absolutely right. I have grown old. I seriously don't remember your name. Could you please tell me your name? He smiled at me. There was a dimple on his cheek. Then I knew who he was. He was one of those boys who used to work in the garage a decade back, 10 years back. Was he Ram or Gopal? Even in those days, I used to get confused. Why? Because they were identical twins. I asked him, are you Ram or Gopal? I'm Ram, madam. Please sit down. I'm very happy to see you like this. Now, I could understand why Ram had inquired about me after recognizing the car. Now she realized why the driver was being asked again and again about me. Madam, I am very grateful to you for your help in those days. I am very grateful, meaning I am really thankful to you. You had helped us a lot. What help did I give? I used to give some old shirts and eatables and told them some stories. Madam, you do not know how those stories changed my life. Do you remember the stories you told us? I didn't. From the ocean of stories in my head, I had told them a few. From the ocean of stories, meaning Sudhamurti says, from a million stories which I had here, I must have narrated a few to them. No, I didn't remember. He sat down opposite me, closed his eyes and started telling his own story. Madam, our life was very difficult. You were aware of it. Why? They didn't have a father. They were living with an uncle. The mother was a laborer and they were working as errand boys. They had only studied up to class 4. The only thing we looked forward to was your visit every Saturday when we listened to your stories. We used to stay with our uncle, and whatever we earned, he would take away. The stories you told us were our only escape from the drudgery of our lives. Drudgery means misery of our life. Our working hours were very long. I felt I should go to school and continue my studies. But night schools were all quite far from where we stayed. With no financial help or support from home, it seemed studying would always remain a dream. Till we heard one of your stories. It made a big difference in our lives. Sudhamurti was only listening to this boy. Ram went on and on narrating his story. But Sudhamurti could not remember which story was he talking about. Now I was keen to know what happened next. Tell me, which story was that? The roles had got reversed. I was the listener and he was the storyteller. Once in a village, now for a change, Sudhamurti said, the role had changed. She became the listener and he was the storyteller. Once in a village, there were many poor people. They all wanted to cross a desert to go to the next village where life was better and the future was more promising. Many boys wanted to go. The elders in the village had said to them, "If you want to do something in life, you must go to that town. You pick up stones from the desert and carry them to that town. Some buyers will pay money for those rare stones." One morning, those two boys started their journey. They carried food and water with them. In the beginning, the sand was still cold and the sun was not hot. Their journey was great. They did not feel tired and strode on. They kept walking on. After some time, the sun rose over their heads and the sand started getting hot. After walking for a long time, they thought they must have reached the edge of the desert. The edge of the desert meaning they must have reached the end of the desert. So they ate all their food and drank the water. But soon they realized they had walked only half the way. They also started collecting stones to sell in the town. After some time, their bags were full of stones and became very heavy. One boy felt it too much to carry, so he started throwing the stones out of his bag. The other boy said, "Let us listen to our elders. Come what may meaning anything might happen. Let us cross this desert and go to the next town." The other boy said, "Come on, you don't remember? We should walk and walk till we reach the other desert. Why are you throwing stones here?" The first boy did not listen and went back. The second boy continued to walk towards the other town. It was a difficult journey, collecting the stones and traveling all alone without any water to drink. Sometimes he felt his friend was right. There was no guarantee what was there in that town. Whether they are going to get something in that town or not, no one knew. It was better to stop and go back to that village. But faith and hope, remember children, faith and hope kept him going. What kept him going? It was their faith. It was his faith and hope that yes, he would get something good when he reaches the other town. After walking for a long time, he reached the town. Much to his disappointment, he saw it was like any other town. There was a dharamshala nearby. Dharamshala means a kind of a rest house. It was getting dark and he was tired, so he decided to spend the night there. Next morning, when he got up, he wanted to throw away the heavy stones he had collected and return to his village back. He opened his bag. When what he saw surprised him. All the stones had become big diamonds. In a minute's time, he had become a millionaire. Do you remember, madam? You also told us the meaning of the story. A student's life, children, my humble request, try to learn these lines and remember them and try to incorporate those things. Always remember, a student's life is like the desert. Examinations are the hot sun. Difficulties are almost like the warm sand. And studies is like hunger and thirst. As a student, you have to travel all alone, remember, collecting knowledge and skill. The way the boy in the story collected stones. The more you collect, the better a life you would lead. After hearing the story, I decided to study in spite of all the odds. In spite of all the odds, meaning in spite of all the odd situation I would come across. With a lot of determination. Determination means when you are ready to do something, you are positive about it. And after facing many difficulties, I managed to finish my schooling. The service station owner also was very helpful. When I got good marks, he helped me pay my fee for an automobile diploma. I continued to work while I learned. Later on, I took loan from the bank and started this work. By the grace of God, I am successful and have repaid my loan. I am a free person now. Madam, rich people are usually scared to start a new venture. A new venture meaning a new project. The rich people, he says, are scared to start a new project. They feel if the venture fails, if the project fails, they will lose their money. I never had anything to lose, ma'am. So ultimately, I had learnt this from my own experience too. What is Gopal now? Ram looked sad. What happened? The writer asked. Gopal's state can also be explained by another story which you had told us. It seems there was a jackal in the desert. One morning, he walked out and faced the sun. He saw his own shadow was larger than him. It was so huge, and he decided he would hunt a camel for his afternoon meal. Did you understand, children? Once there was a jackal in a forest. He came out to hunt smaller animals for his lunch. But when he saw his own image in water, or his own shadow, the shadow was bigger than him. So he thought, why should he go in for smaller animals? He should go and hunt a camel. He spent the whole day searching for a camel and did not pay attention to the smaller animals he could have caught. He did not find one till the evening. By then, he saw his shadow was even smaller than him. Why? It's because of the sun, children. When you stand in the morning, it is different. The shape of the shadow keeps changing. So he started hunting for a mouse. Gopal was the same. He always tried to do things beyond his capacity. Capacity means beyond his capability. He always wanted to think and take something big in his life. And he failed miserably. He failed very badly. He doesn't even want to work with me. Now he's a helper in an office. I was dumbstruck. Dumbstruck means when you are not able to speak, speechless. To hear how a simple story I had told brought about so many changes in their life. I had never imagined while telling them that such a thing was possible. I am not even the original writer of these stories. I could only silently salute the person who thought of these stories first. Did he or she realize the effect that would have on two children after so many years? Sudha Murthy ends the story thinking about those writers who had written these stories in their first place. Sudha was only narrating these stories and they had so much of impact on their lives. I hope you liked the story, A Journey Through Desert. Thank you so much.